Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today. I'm Kathy Seek, Senior Vice President of the Public Affairs for the Automobile Club of Southern California. The Auto Club is a nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. We were founded over 100 years ago, and we currently have 84 branch offices that serve over 6.8 million members in Southern California. And our inter-insurance exchange of the Automobile Club is the 4th largest auto insurer in the state. As you've been hearing today, connected cars use vehicle data for a variety of purposes and services. Vehicle data includes, among other things, useful information about the condition and performance of cars, and real-time access to this information can be beneficial to consumers. The information includes trouble codes, which can pinpoint problems big or small to speed repairs so motorists can get back on the road. It also includes so-called prognostics data, which can help anticipate and identify problems before they occur, allowing consumers to address developing issues at their convenience and without a potentially dangerous, inconvenient, or costly breakdown. The bottom line is that vehicle data is useful to consumers. It can benefit car owners, so car owners should have the control and choice over that vehicle data. AAA believes greater consumer choice and control over car data will protect consumer interests. It will also result in innovation and growth in automotive services, allowing consumers to choose the services and service providers they prefer and realize the full value of the motor vehicles they own or lease. To maximize the benefits of vehicle data in connected cars, AAA has been urging automakers, their commercial partners, and others involved in connected cars to abide by basic consumer rights for car data. These rights focus on 3 main objectives. The first is transparency. Consumers have the right to clearly understand the information that's being transmitted by their cars. The second objective is choice. Consumers have the right to decide with whom to share their data and for what purposes. And the third is security. Consumers have the right to expect that connected car manufacturers will use reasonable measures to protect vehicle data systems and services against unauthorized access and use. In 2014, we sponsored, along with AAA, Northern California, Nevada, and Utah, SB 994, Monning, on vehicle data. We believe that the legislature needed to provide clear, fair ground rules for this complex and developing area of the law. The objective of the bill was to ensure that car owners are informed and understand what information their cars transmit and have choices about their vehicle information and related services. Unfortunately, the bill did not advance, but it spurred considerable discussion, and we thank you for holding this hearing today as a result. And I'm also pleased to report that there's been some progress since that time. In late 2014, the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers and the Association of Global Automakers released their consumer privacy and protection principles, and this document attempts to address some of the issues under discussion today. And more recently, some automakers have been taking steps to provide consumers with more options about vehicle data and connected car services. One example is Ford, giving consumers the ability to download apps from third parties, including AAA, to the new Ford Sync in-vehicle system, allowing consumers to access driving-related services from providers of their choice. And we urge other automakers to follow this path and hope that this is the beginning of the expansion of consumer access and control over vehicle data. But clearly, more work lies ahead. And the Auto Club and AAA look forward to working with this committee as you continue to explore vehicle data access issues. And we will also continue to work with automakers and others to help provide beneficial and safe services that consumers can choose. And we look forward to a future where vehicle data and connected cars continue to improve safety, mobility, and the overall driving experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Senator Morlock, I believe you had a question or two.
I just wanted to observe a couple things and make some recommendations, Madam Chair. Somehow the old TV show My Mother the Car came to mind. So I looked it up on my iPhone. It was in 1966. it was now ranked the worst show. It had to vie for last place with the Jerry Springer show. But now I've got my car talking to me, or at least some kind of device telling me where to turn and when to turn. And I keep hearing in my head is recalculating. So as we recalculate, Madam Chair, we're in a world now where if you have a laptop, we know where you've been. So it's just a real interesting dynamic. So the trend to Senator Bell, if we're looking at transportation and we have this data, it seems that we may want to at least have another hearing on the data and the privacy, but looking at miles traveled, if it's already there, and I know this is kind of scary territory, but if we're already there, it seems that there's something to explore as opposed to just raising the tax on gas. We've already got some tools in place, and the trend is your friend, so there's something to look at. And I guess my closing comment, Madam Chair, as we look at this, I see what we've discussed today, an incredible tool, but also we just want to avoid abuse. But I see it more as a federal issue, so I'm looking forward to your closing comments, Madam Chair, as to how a non-lawyer can appreciate some of the dialogue we've had today. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer that last one in terms of privacy. As I mentioned at the beginning, the right of privacy, the federal government provides a floor. California has a much higher standard, I would argue, of privacy because it is within our articulated and explicit fundamental rights as compared to being a right that is implied into the federal Constitution. So I think when it comes to privacy, clearly the state of California has a very strong and fundamental interest in that. As far as some of the transportation aspects, unfortunately, the federal government doesn't seem to be acting very swiftly today in much of anything. And for the people of California, I think some of it behooves us to try to take the lead in some of these areas and hope that at some point the federal government will respond, hopefully follow some of our lead, because in California, we like to be first. Not necessarily best, but we do like to be first. And so this may be an area where we start addressing some of the, particularly the privacy issues, the security issues. I think we have more cars on the road than many other states have people, and we have, I think, almost as many cars as we have people in California. So certainly it behooves us to try to protect, public safety is one of the, as you well know, one of the responsibilities of government is to protect the public safety. And on that basis as well, I think that we certainly, I think, have a responsibility to at least look into this issue and start framing the debate, which is part of what today's hearing was all about. And so I appreciate your comments and the testimony of all of you who have been here today. And before we close, and I know my colleague, Senator Bell, will have some closing remarks, we do have an opportunity to hear some public testimony. If anyone wishes to step forward for about 60 seconds, we can give each person that right, unless there are any other questions before we do that.
For the panelists.
Any other questions for the panelists? Senator Bell.
It involves, the question I have involves resale of an automobile. In the future, resale of an automobile, you think that consumers are going to be interested in having some kind of what I call sweep of the technology in the automobile to make sure there's no glitches, there's no inappropriate information in terms of the telematics that are associated with the vehicle before they purchase it. You think that's going to be an issue in terms of a decision to buy or not buy a car, and have some kind of, we have to have a termite inspection before we buy a house, right, in real estate. So what about an inspection before we purchase a car? I'd just like to hear what people think about what kind of future we're looking at. So that's a question for me.
When we do a pre-purchase inspection, on vehicles, depending on what kind it is, we'll run a full system check on the computerization of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Specifically, Toyotas and Fords are relatively easy to do that with. A full health check, it checks all the computers on the car, sees if there's any fault codes in them, whether there's any updates available for them, any reflashing or reprogramming, and that's part of a service we offer when we're looking at a car for somebody. Other vehicles, to the extent that you can do that, we do. So that doesn't, a lot of times if there's going to be something that glitched in a system, there's going to be trouble codes, and a reflashing of that computer, just like rebooting or reloading software on a home computer, will usually correct a problem.
I think as Dennis brought up in his testimony about the car rental, there's a lot of personal data that it's on that computer, and you're going to want to sweep that clean so that the next owner doesn't have all the personal data of who you call, what you do. I mean, there's a lot of personal private information.
If I could say something, when you take your phone in to get a new phone, you reset everything in the phone. You take everything out of it. It's just a basic phone and all your contacts, your photos, there's no way to do that for the car. But what Robert's talking about is the car's data can be checked and make sure there's no codes. To transfer a car in California from one owner to another, it has to go through a smog check program, and the smog check program would check for any trouble codes because the check engine light cannot be on to transfer the vehicle. So we kind of have that in place already, but we don't have anything in place for the personal data that's inside that car. So I think that was your question, am I correct?
Yeah, so like if I'm purchasing a new car, I'd like to see that there's no inappropriate data or somebody else's data or maybe another question might be if I'm buying a car, I want to make sure that somebody didn't put something in the car that would maybe be inappropriate in terms of
pollution
or maybe information that could track me as a new owner, for example, all those kinds of questions, my privacy, when I buy a used car.
As of today, there is nothing in that vehicle. I bought a used Mercedes, and in the GPS, all of his favorites were saved. All his previous addresses were in there. So there isn't really any way to sweep it at this present time, but the more data we collect, the more personal data we collect, I think the need for that would be greater.
Okay,
And I would add on to that, to use the phone example, if you have, for example, an iPhone and you lose it, you still have the capacity via your cloud to wipe your data on that phone, which would not be capable in stolen cars at this time. And beyond just the normal scope of car diagnostics, one of the concerns, particularly on behalf of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, is the idea that what about all of these other connected features that gauge car performance that might not be a check engine light? At what point does the automaker, are they at any point able to discontinue providing updates, much like a phone does, right? Older versions of the iPhone are essentially bricked. You might be able to use them to call, but you're certainly not surfing the internet on them. And so at what point is my car devalued in selling it, or am I not even able to safely drive it if security updates aren't regularly provided? And I think that begs a second question, which is, of all of the conversations we've had today about consumer choice, I didn't hear anyone mention the opportunity for consumers to work on their own vehicles. And the direction we're moving will be an environment in which an individual is not capable at all of performing tests on their own vehicle or performing work on their own vehicle of any kind.
The deception that occurred regarding pollution is important. In any other standard that we have laws that have to be followed, and the vehicle has to follow the laws also. So do you have any suggestions on how to beef up the way we can avoid those kinds of deceptions in vehicles in California as we move forward from the debacle of we had a hearing in my committee last week on the VW situation. Do you have any recommendations on how we can move forward from that debacle that we had and we're finding out more and more about in terms of telematics, or any suggestions that technology could be used to.
Well, you might want to consider some kind of a certified scrub, so the car's been certified as being scrubbed. So there's some process for going through and making sure that all of that stuff has been removed, and this car's now got a stamp on it saying this car certified scrubbed, or whatever you want to call it.
Found that we had 80,000 cars now that are just sitting around in California that don't conform to our air quality standards.
Well, and to the point my colleague from AAA mentioned, the idea of transparency for consumers in general. What information is in my car that I should know about to be a good consumer, to be a good driver, to be safe? Where can I take that, or can I myself ensure that it's running as it should be safely and without any kind of bugs across a variety of technological spectrums?
You know, I hate to get into this, but one of the issues, the digital millennium copyright has put a lot of prevention and circumvention of vehicle software. It makes it very hard for anybody to check the software of a vehicle to make sure it's operating as it should be. And it was one university that found the problem that Volkswagen had. If that information was easier to, or was their circumvention wasn't preventing people to do research, probably would have been a lot easier for somebody to have found that, and maybe quicker, that Volkswagen had this issue.
I would second that issue on behalf of EFF, the idea of transparency and the idea to allow for securities testing of these products. It's very limited by current copyright laws around auto software.
I'm pursuing an issue of safety and traffic safety, and our moral obligation to make sure that all cars are operating correctly in California, in terms of recalls and those kinds of things, and noticing whether or not there's a problem, and finding out what the solution is as quickly as possible to prevent crashes and deaths and injuries in California. So do you have any suggestions of how this issue revolves around that particular subject in terms of protecting against problems that might occur on recalled cars or cars that need to be repaired, given the fact that we have the obligation of the new car dealers, but I'm a guy that I may be driving around with a car and not have a knowledge that something is needed to be done to my car. So
all recalls are performed by the manufacturer.
Yes, right.
And
yeah.
we do not qualify to be able to do those because the National Transportation Board tracks all recalls. And so it's done under the Magnuson-Moss that it has to be performed at no charge on a recall. Now, as far as technical service bulletins, which is what tells us about pattern failures, those are available to us, and the aftermarket has the ability to repair the vehicles by technical service bulletins. That is characteristically a repair that is not performed free of charge. So the dealer has the same right as we do to do TSPs.
You know, one of the benefits of telematics that we didn't talk about is the amount of big data that comes from vehicles to know where failure rates are, where problems are with vehicles, you know, long before they happen. And if that data is available outside of the manufacturer, that also provides the ability for our manufacturers to correct problems when we repair the cars or, you know, put the right parts on. But it also gives some clue if there is a recall issue or a problem that's wider. So the transparency is really critical here, because the more people can check that data, the better that transparency preserves safety is for the car owner.
Mike has a comment. Mike.
Senator, as to the recall issue, I think one of the key issues is knowing who owns the car. After the car leaves the dealer, cars are a hugely transferable item. Yep. Manufacturers work real hard to try and figure out who the current owner is, but DMV knows that best. And we have been talking to a variety of people, including Mr. Gordon, who has a bill on recalls, to see if there's a way to beef up DMV involvement in this so they know who, and can provide information on who has the car now. Because, again, that's a big hole in the system.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is trying to increase the efficiency of how those recalled items are corrected in terms of time and, those kinds of things. And what the rate of repair is by a certain amount of days, and that kind of thing. I think we ought to, try to improve that situation.
Share your concern, obviously.
Yeah, I just have a
fixed the
concern
recalled
about
car.
that.
I can suggest a solution, and I think DMV tried it on a pilot program, but they would not renew your registration if there was an active recall. And so if you did that, you would solve the problem, I think, very, very simply.
I think one last point on this, and something that we didn't cover, are the OTAs, the over-the-air platform vendors. These are third parties who generally affiliate themselves with the telematic provider and as well as the automaker, and they do a variety of services. This is a direct quote from one of the services: collect and analyze data, identify what's mission critical, assess the transactional value of said data, and so on, end quote. And so these type of providers are pulling both behavioral and diagnostic information from the cloud in an affiliate relationship as part of telematics. And I think there are lots of opportunities, as my other colleague mentioned, for, if there is transparency, to identify what likely is a potential recall issue or a potential consumer safety issue that could be coming down the pipeline. And again, right now, automakers and manufacturers are making those determinations themselves, whereas this does provide an interesting opportunity, if there is appropriate transparency in the data aggregation, for consumers to see where there might actually be issues coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I just want to say that I didn't ask these questions of the first panel. However, I'd love to hear any responses from them to these issues so I can get a full picture from their perspective on these issues, or any other member of the public. So thank you. Thank you.
Perhaps we can do that at the end. We're a little bit over our time. We have a gentleman from the public who would like to say a few words. We'll give you about a minute or two at the most if you'd tell us your name and affiliation and your thoughts.
Yes, I'm Charlie Peters, Clean Air Performance Professionals. We are a coalition of motorists, and we are very interested in this subject matter. And I think the issue here that comes to mind to me very significantly is what has not been said here today. The issue of the process being an appropriate oversight and people to correct the problem seems to be the part that maybe needs a little more of your consideration. As an example, in California, we have something called a PZEV, Partial Zero Emissions Vehicle. I have in my hand my testimony at the Air Resources Board in 2003 indicating this was a free service by the car manufacturers and it was going to get done perfect every time with every car, and it's going to be a perfect world because it's free. Our experience is we have never found an instance where a car has had a problem that was a PZEV vehicle that failed a smog check with a check engine light on, that required a repair, that is guaranteed by the manufacturer for diagnosis and repair at no charge, where that has been done correctly ever. Never been done ever. So the issue is who's responsible and how do you get a complaint so that it can even be considered? In our system, the oversight is the California Air Resources Board. The California Air Resources Board will not take a complaint unless it has a written rejection by the manufacturer stating that this car, this particular car of this particular customer that needs a PZEV warranty repair, they're refusing to do the repair. They're never going to do that. The consumer is never going to address the issue with the manufacturer. They go to the dealer or they go to the aftermarket. So the problem never gets fixed. These problems are absolutely solvable. They can be done today. We can start fixing this now, but somebody needs to pay attention to what are we doing here, and is this an argument over who gets the business, or is this an argument over are we going to do something to actually better serve the public and make this system work, which it does not work as well as it should right now.
Thank you.
And Senator, you're talking about trying to fund the highways and have the money to fix the roads. We can do that by making ethanol voluntary instead of mandated, taking the credits that we're going to create by reducing emissions with a pilot study at the Caldecott Tunnel and provide the data so that you can fix the roads without spending a dime of the public's money, just with the credits from the reduced global warming gases in California. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses who would like to address the issues before our hearing today? All right, there are none. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your testimony and your patience. I think that this has been very interesting. I look forward to continuing the conversation, honing it down a little bit. It seems to me that the three themes that keep coming up are transparency, choice, and security. It also seems to me that we have different definitions of each, coming from different perspectives, and I think the need to address them so that we're all on the same page will be critically important as we try to deal with the privacy issues, the safety issues, and the fact that the world is a very different place than it was when Mr. Ford came out with his Model T. So with that, I have nothing further. Mr. Bell, Senator Bell, do you wish to close?
Well, just that technology is a good thing. It could help us relieve traffic congestion. It can make traveling more safe, reduce crashes, injuries, and deaths. There's a lot of real advantages to improving technologies, and we should embrace them with the concerns that are raised here in terms of consumer protection and safety. And I think that technology can be a benefit in terms of travel for everybody in California. And we're going to need to do something, folks, because some people say there isn't any more room on those roads out there. And I think the only way we might be able to do it is improve our technology in terms of travel and make traveling easier for the public and safer for the public. So thank you.
Thank you all. We are adjourned.